Hello everybody. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Ian from 1998 Monroe, NY Colonial. On today's topic, I want to go over why South Korea and Japan are better cultures as opposed to China. As some of you may very well know, China's obviously been the major epicenter for manufacturing and trade, and this being the case, we already well know that they tend to be the worst when it comes to manufacturing, being that the products and goods that they make are either a hit or a miss. And to overlap with Korea and Japan, I want to talk about why they're better, not just in terms of manufacturing, but as a society for these two countries. Yeah, so when it comes to manufacturing, there's plenty of things that the Koreans, specifically South Koreans and Japanese people, that they do better than Chinese. Like if you look, for example, at the let's say we're gonna dive into to automotive brands of cars and vehicles. So I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with either Toyota, Honda, Nissan, Mazda, and Subaru. 5 of these major brands from that country. And for years now, Japan has made the best cars ever since they came in the 60s or 70s. And if you're familiar also with Toyota's luxury brand Lexus, they make also some of the finest vehicles, let alone just basic generic vehicles from the Toyota brand, which is why Toyota is a good company. Then if you look at Honda also makes good cars too, and motorcycles. But I'm just gonna be focusing on cars. So there's the generic Honda brand that makes basic cars, and then there's the luxury brand Acura. They make good cars too. And then if you look at Nissan used to be a good company, but they've gone downhill over the years. So I remember seeing several videos from Scotty Kilmer on his channel, and I remember him talk about how Nissan used to build good cars back in the 90s, the 80s, and early years before, when they used to be called Datsun. And unfortunately, back in about 99 or 2000, Nissan merged with the French car company Renault, and the quality just hasn't been what it really used to be. I mean, and I'm not saying that all Nissan cars are bad, I'm just saying that majority of them are not as great as they used to be. However, I think, if I'm not mistaken, the Nissan Frontier pickup truck is still mostly Nissan, despite a little bit of Renault technology, but it's not as bad as all the other models where they have engine, transmission, and electrical problems. And that's what I think. Now, I'm not really too familiar with Mazda or Subaru, so I'm not going to really dive into those companies, but they still make good cars nonetheless. And if we look at the Korean cars now, I'm sure a lot of you may be familiar with Kia and Hyundai. I mean, the Korean cars are not as good as Japanese, but they've really stepped up their game over the years. Because matter of fact, back in the 80s and 90s when they first started, they were very crappy cars, probably about as crappy as some of the American car companies like Chrysler, for example, that's always had a long history of making bad cars. But over the years, Hyundai and Kia have really improved because of how they followed in the footsteps of the Japanese people, being that Japanese and Korean people are somewhat similar, despite certain major differences between the two cultures. Now, I'm not really too familiar with Chinese in terms of car manufacturer brands, but if they were to make cars, it'd be crappy just like everything else that they make, just because the people there, they don't care, and they just care about cheating on people and being greedy and wanting people's money instead of caring about about the well-being and safety of other people. But that's what I think. Oh, and also with regard to Japanese and Korean cultures making better products compared to Chinese. Uh, Many years ago, the Koreans and Japanese companies, they used to make electric oscillating fans, like, and those used to be really well made compared to all the modern day fans that they make that are made in China that don't last a very long time and don't really perform as well as the older ones. Like, for example, for those of you who are familiar with any of my fan videos, I have several Lasco oscillating fans. I have a 1980s brown Galaxy 16-inch fan, model 2151, that I purchased off of eBay last year, and you'll find it somewhere in my channel, and I'll post a link in the description to that video if you want to check out that fan. And I also have two other fans I want to point out that I have, or two other Lasco fans. I have a blue Dayton 12-inch oscillating fan. I think it was model 4C507, the one with the busted neck that I bought off of eBay a couple months ago. It's basically just the same thing as the Galaxy Lasco rebrand, as that brown 16-inch fan that I just mentioned. And then the other one that I want to point out is this blue patent 16-inch fan. That's the larger version of this blue Dayton Lasco that I have. And the interesting thing about the two blue Lascos that I have, then this one brown Galaxy that I have, is these fans made by the Lasco fan company. A long time ago, there used to be this company Sanyo that made an exactly identical copy of these fans, and I guess Lasco probably had some sort of a trade agreement with Sanyo from Japan, and I think if I'm not mistaken, I think the motors are Sanyo, even though they weren't made in Japan. I believe in a couple fan video descriptions I saw by Who Is This Guy 724 on YouTube. This dude Pat has a couple of Air King wall-mounted fans, and he has a 12-inch Galaxy wall-mounted fan also. And he posted in the description when he revisited these fans, I think about a month or two ago, and pointed out how the motors are made by Sanyo, but instead of being made in Japan, it's made somewhere here in this country. I forget which state it is, but it was made in this country nonetheless. And with regard to going back to what I was talking about with the Japanese cars and how they make some of the finest cars that last a long time. My dad has a 2005 Acura TSX, the luxury sport version of the Honda Accord, similar to the 2003 to 2007 Accord with the 2.4 liter four-cylinder, and that car has over 225,000 miles. I'm not sure how many miles it has, since I haven't seen my dad in a while and haven't had a chance to ride in his car. But it has over 200,000 miles. I mean, it's had minor issues here and there, but it's nevertheless been a very reliable car, which is why I like Japanese car brands. And if the Chinese people were to make cars, I don't think I'd be a fan of them, since we already know they have a long history of making poorly manufactured goods and products and all that. Oh, and not to mention, with regard to Acura cars, if any of you are familiar with Tyson Hughie, who lives out in Arizona somewhere, I think in the Phoenix area, he has several Acura cars, and one of his cars that stands out that I'm most familiar with is his 1994 Acura Legend Acura Legend LS Coupe. It's a 94 model, and it has over 500,000 miles, and it still runs and drives. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if it still has the original engine. I'm not sure if the transmission is original, because I think on some of his Instagram posts he said that he He may have replaced the transmission several times over the last 10 plus years that he's owned the car. I mean, he bought it used, I think in 2003 or 4 when it was about 10 years old, and now that it's over 25 years old, it's had a lot of repair work done over the years, especially with the amount of miles he's been putting on that car, which just shows you how reliable those cars are, where you never really need to worry about fixing it too much, except for just doing routine maintenance and just changing any parts that wear out over time. And yeah, and other cultures that I find that are more friendlier than Chinese people are different European cultures, for example, like Germany, Iceland, the Netherlands, France, and countries like those, or even Switzerland. Now, I'm not too familiar with France, Iceland, Switzerland, Netherlands, and other countries. But as far as I know about Germany, they also make good cars, just like similar to the Japanese luxury brands of Acura by Honda, Lexus by Toyota, and Infiniti by Nissan. Because Mercedes, a long time ago, they used to make some of the most high-tech, well, I wouldn't really say high-tech, but some of the most luxury, high-quality vehicles. It's somewhat over-engineered, but not as over-engineered as the newer ones. But some of the older model Mercedes that I really like are the W123 vehicles, like some of those that have the diesel engines, like the 3-liter inline 5 OM617 engine that's commonly found in the 300D, 300CD, and 300TD. And for those of you familiar with those cars, you know exactly what I'm talking about, and I don't need to go over which one is which. Which one is the 300D, 300CD, and 300TD. But those engines are very reliable, and they can go like just hundreds of thousands and over 1 million miles if you maintain them. Now, they're certainly different compared to the Japanese luxury cars, but regardless of that, they can last a long time. Just like Tyson Hughes' Acura that has over 500,000 miles. And some examples of these older Mercedes that I really like that can last hundreds of thousands of miles. I really like the 300D vehicles. I remember Saab Kyle 04 almost 10 years ago, back in 2011, posted a video of an 83 300D with over 367,000 miles. Not in the greatest shape. Didn't look like it was really that well maintained, but at the same time though, it still ran and drove. All it just appeared to need was just a little bit of routine maintenance here and there, and then it would be a good car to keep lasting and keep being driven for many more years. And also, other vehicles I also like are the R107 convertible and coupe roadsters, like the 380 SL, or perhaps maybe like the 420 or 450 SL. I mean, those cars use gasoline engines, unlike diesel engines, but they can still last a long time if you maintain them. And some of these engines that they use on these R107 vehicles, they also use on the W126 long sedans, like the 380 SE, or I think the 420 SE. They use the same engine as the SL convertibles. But yeah. But bottom line is that the Chinese people are not friendly at all, and there's many other good cultures that are more worthwhile to be friends with, since they care. And I'm not saying that all Chinese people are bad. Not that all of them are not friendly, but a good majority of them are not. And also, I want to, before I close this video, I want to go over some things that I saw on Donald Trump's briefing video. Donald Trump's briefing news video that I saw on YouTube on, I believe, Fox News. And at this point, now that things are getting better and that the economy is opening up again in slow and careful phases, I know people have been talking about vaccines lately, and Donald Trump pointed out how we should have a vaccine sometime by the end of this year or sooner than that. And I want to say that regardless of whether we have a vaccine or not, I don't think it really matters at this point, because at this point a lot of people have recovered other than the people who've died, and I think we're all going to become immune to this disease whether we've had symptoms from coronavirus or not. We should all become immune to it eventually. And I think over the last several weeks and back last month, in some of the news reports that I saw with Donald Trump, he said that vaccine or no vaccine, either way the economy should open. And there are some other diseases out there that we've never found a vaccine to, and people become immune to it, such as those people that have HIV and AIDS and certain other flus and viruses that I can't really remember off the top of my head right now. But things are definitely getting better now. And just like in my second video where I talked about why China is the worst country, and talk about how we may have some manufacturing that might go to Mexico, Germany, England, and other countries. Besides that, I think we'll definitely still see that happen, unless if anything changes. But there's a good chance that manufacturing and trade deals will go to Korea, Japan, Germany, and many others. And also other things unrelated to manufacturing that I want to get into is that if you look at the cultures of Korean and Japanese people, they make good food, and they also know how to cook. And they have a lot more food varieties than they do here in the U.S., being that they have a larger diversity of different spices, meats, seafood, and all sorts of stuff. Now China is also the same, where they have a diverse culture of different spices and different meats, seafoods, and stuff like that. Oh, and not to mention these cultures also have tea. Like different versions of tea plants from different plant leaves. Now, regardless of that, the Chinese used to be good cultures, not as bad as what they are now, similar to the state of Korea and Japan, but over the years it's really gone down. Because in recent years, a lot of Chinese people are very disgusting by the way that they don't eat as healthy food as they used to, and in recent years they started eating bats, dogs, cats, and all sorts of animals that you usually keep as pets that you normally wouldn't eat, like certain animals, and that's really disgusting. And not to mention they tend to eat food raw when it's really not healthy, which is why they're very sick people. And this is one of the other reasons why I'm really not a fan of those people. Despite how China used to be a good culture, and that I come from that particular culture, and I'm not trying to discriminate them in any way, but I'm just saying that, I'm just not a fan of them like I used to. And being that Japanese and Korean cultures are fairly similar to the Chinese culture that I come from, I tend to favor them more in recent years, with regard to everything that I just said in this whole video. And I also like European cultures, even though they're totally different than Asian. There's a lot of good people, and they're very friendly too. And I know recently there have been people who there have been a lot of protests and riots about George Floyd, where people were racist about black people, especially with the white officers that killed George Floyd, causing him to suffocate. and no longer live. And that's not fair if you do that, and something that of course I'm also not happy with, just like with China and everything. But with regard to coming together and not being segregated, or just living in ways to feel segregated from people, we all should accept people for who they are, regardless of what race and what ethnic cultures we come from. We shouldn't make fun of or discriminate people by their race. Like, I mean, even though there's certain people from certain cultures that I don't like, at the same time I just tend to be one of those people that I do everything I can to get along with others, regardless of how different they are. And regardless of all our differences, it's good to actually be different as opposed to being all the same. Because by being different, we all can come together, get along, and share our differences. And there's a lot of incredible things you can do with people, regardless of being friends with people from different races or ethnicities. We should all accept each other for who we are. And that'll wrap up this video. I hope you enjoyed. If you wish to connect with me socially, I can be found on Instagram, or you can send me an email, and details will be down in the description. Well, you guys take care, stay safe, and take care. Peace out.